The cashier's laugh was small, polite, almost apologetic. But in a bakery full of Saturday afternoon customers, it might as well have been a thunderclap. The woman at the counter stared at the card reader. The little screen glowed red. Declined. She tried again. Red again. Around her, the smell of warm cinnamon and vanilla frosting floated through the air like a promise the world had forgotten to keep. A child somewhere in the bakery pressed his nose against the glass case of cupcakes. A couple near the window laughed softly over coffee. Life moved on, ordinary and easy, for everyone except her. On the counter between her hands sat a small white cake, 6 inches, white frosting, blue letters that read, "Happy Birthday." Price tag, $3. She couldn't pay for it. And nobody, not the cashier, not the couple by the window, not the little boy with his nose against the glass, nobody noticed the man standing quietly behind her. Nobody noticed when he reached into the pocket of his faded brown jacket and pulled out a few crumpled dollar bills. Nobody knew that the woman standing there had once held his entire future in her hands. And nobody could have imagined what that $3 moment was about to set in motion. Cedar Falls, Colorado, was the kind of town people described as peaceful when they meant small. Main Street ran 4 blocks. The hardware store had been owned by the same family for 3 generations. The bakery, Sweet Crumbs, had a hand-painted sign above the door that looked slightly crooked. No matter how many times the owner straightened it, it was the kind of place where everyone knew your truck, which meant everyone knew Ethan Callaway's. The old Ford pickup, dark green paint faded at the hood, a shallow dent above the left rear wheel, sat parked in front of Sweet Crumbs most Saturday afternoons. Ethan brought his daughter, Maya, there after her afternoon art class. It was their ritual, had been since her mother left 4 years ago, quietly, without a fight, which somehow made it worse. Maya had been 5 then. She barely remembered the before. Ethan remembered everything. He was 39. Dark brown hair kept a little too long because haircuts cost money that had other plans. Warm hazel eyes that carried the particular tiredness of a man who woke early, worked late, and still managed to smile when his daughter ran through the door after school. He had the kind of face people instinctively trusted, not because it was handsome, though it was, but because it looked honest. He was an engineer by training, a dreamer by nature, a delivery driver on weekends. The woman standing at the bakery counter was named Serena Voss. She did not look like someone whose name appeared in Forbes. Today, she wore a plain gray sweater and dark jeans. Her dark hair was pulled back simply, no jewelry except small gold earrings. She had driven herself from Denver in a car that was, for her, unremarkable, though the parking attendant at her building treated it like a museum piece. She had come to Cedar Falls for no particular reason she could name. A drive, fresh air, a break from the glass tower on the 34th floor, where she spent most of her existence, making decisions that moved millions of dollars and rarely moved her. She had not expected to be standing in a bakery, humiliated by a $3 birthday cake. Her wallet was empty. Her phone, where her mobile payment app lived, had died somewhere on the highway. The backup card she kept in her coat pocket had apparently expired 2 weeks ago, and she had not noticed because she had not needed to notice. She was, in every practical sense, broke in this moment, and the cashier's small, polite, mortifying laugh had made the whole quiet bakery look up. "I'm so sorry," Serena said quietly. She pushed the cake toward the edge of the counter. "I'll come back another time." The words tasted like ash. She had not said "I'm sorry" to anyone in months. She ran a company. She made calls. She did not apologize to bakery cashiers in small Colorado towns for being unable to afford a birthday cake she had wanted to buy herself because she had been born 38 years ago. Today, and nobody in her life had remembered. Not one person. "Put it on mine." The voice came from behind her, calm, unhurried, the way a man speaks when he's used to solving small problems quietly. Serena turned. Ethan Callaway stood holding the hand of a little girl with wild dark curls and paint-stained fingers, evidence of the art class, and bright, curious eyes. He was already reaching into his jacket pocket. "You don't have to do that," Serena said immediately. "I know," he replied simply. Maya tugged his hand. "Daddy, everybody deserves birthday cake." She said it the way children say obvious things, with the baffled patience of someone who cannot believe adults need reminding. A few people nearby smiled. The tension in the bakery dissolved like sugar in warm water. Ethan counted the bills carefully. 1, 2, 3. He placed them on the counter. Exactly enough. Serena watched his hands. Something about the deliberate care of that counting, the way he smoothed each bill before setting it down, registered somewhere in the back of her mind. This was not money he spent easily. She knew that the way you know things without knowing how you know them. Thank you, she said. Really? He looked at her. Happy birthday. For a moment, just a moment, their eyes met. Hers were dark brown and carried the specific exhaustion of a person who had been performing competence for so long, she had forgotten what it felt like to simply need something. His were hazel and warm, and held something she did not immediately have a word for. Then Maya tugged his sleeve again. Daddy, are we still getting my cake? Something moved across Ethan's face, quick and controlled, the way a man hides a thing he has practiced hiding. Serena caught it. Only just. He smiled at Maya. We'll figure it out, Lilybird. Maya accepted this with the faith of a child who has always been told the truth and had no reason to doubt it yet. They walked toward the door. Serena stood with the small birthday cake in her hands, watching them go. The bell above the door chimed once. The old green pickup pulled out of the parking lot beneath a sky turning amber at the edges. She did not know his name. She did not know that she had met him before, in a room very different from this one. She did not know that the $3 he had just spent on a stranger's birthday cake had been the last $3 he had set aside for his daughters. But something in the parking lot's amber light, something about the careful way he had counted those bills, would not let her go. 2 hours later, Serena Voss sat in her private office on the 34th floor of Voss Capital Group's ENCE Denver headquarters. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city like a painting she had long since stopped seeing. Her phone buzzed with 12 messages from board members and 4 from her assistant. She ignored all of them. The small white birthday cake sat on her glass conference table. It looked ridiculous there. Perfect. And ridiculous. Rachel, her executive assistant, had said happy birthday, Ms. Voss, with practiced warmth when Serena walked in. The receptionist downstairs had said it too. They remembered because it was in the calendar, not because they had thought of it. Serena opened a lower desk drawer, the one she rarely touched, and pulled out a folder she had been meaning to file properly for 6 months. She did not know why she opened it tonight. She did not know why the name on the top page made her stop breathing for exactly 3 seconds. Callaway, Ethan J. Project Proposal, Air Vault Energy Optimization Platform. The photograph in the file was a professional headshot attached to the cover letter. Hazel eyes, dark hair, the same honest face, the same quiet expression. The man from the bakery. Serena placed the folder flat on the table beside the birthday cake and stared at the photograph. For a long moment, she remembered the boardroom. 6 months ago, a Tuesday. Ethan Callaway had stood at the front of the room in a navy blazer that was slightly too formal for the occasion in a way that suggested he owned few formal things. He had presented for 22 minutes. The projections had been remarkable. The technology, an adaptive energy management platform capable of reducing industrial overhead by 30 to 40%, had been unlike anything her evaluation team had reviewed that year. She remembered the final recommendation from her strategic review division. Excessive market risk. Infrastructure timeline non-viable. Pass. She had signed off without reading the full file herself. She had been between flights. She had trusted the process. She looked at the $3 cake. She looked at the photograph. She thought about the careful way he had smoothed each dollar bill before laying it on the center. Her phone buzzed again. She silenced it without looking. Instead, she opened the Air Vault proposal and began, for the first time, to actually read it. Page by page, projection by projection, technical diagram by technical diagram. By midnight, she had reached the evaluation summary prepared by her strategic review division. She read the final recommendation again. Pass. Risk exposure unacceptable. And then she found something that made her set the document down very carefully. The numbers in the evaluation summary did not match the numbers in the original proposal. Not approximately. Not within normal rounding margins. The projected revenue estimates had been reduced by 60%. The market viability score had been downgraded from strong to speculative. Key supporting data had simply been removed. Serena sat very still in the quiet office. Outside, Denver glittered. Someone had altered Ethan Callaway's file. She did not sleep that night. By 6 in the morning, Serena was back at her desk. By 7, she had pulled every archived document connected to the AirVault proposal: original drafts, internal emails, evaluation drafts, revision histories. By 8, her assistant Rachel had arrived to find the conference table covered in stacked folders, and her boss staring at a laptop screen with an expression Rachel had never seen before. Not the controlled focus of a business decision. Something else. Something heavier. Serena called Marcus Webb, a former strategic advisor who had retired from Voss Capital Group 8 months ago, after 23 years with the company. She had always trusted Marcus. He picked up on the second ring, which told her he had been expecting the call. "The Callaway file," she said without preamble. A long pause. "I wondered when you'd find it," Marcus said. What he told her over the next 40 minutes dismantled 6 months of assumption with the quiet efficiency of someone who had been carrying a weight he had not known how to put down. The AirVault proposal had been flagged internally, not for risk, but for value. 2 independent consultants brought in during preliminary review had described it as potentially transformative. One had written, in a private memo that never made it into the official file, that the platform could capture a market worth several $100 million within a decade if developed with proper backing. That memo had disappeared. The evaluation summary had been rewritten by a senior director who had, 6 months after the rejection, quietly accepted a position at a competing firm, one that had recently announced a suspiciously similar energy optimization initiative. "Can you prove this?" Serena asked. "I can show you the revision timestamps," Marcus said. "The rest is a trail you'll have to follow yourself." After the call, Serena stood at the window for a long time. Below her, Denver moved through its morning. Delivery trucks, school buses, early commuters. Ordinary, purposeful, unaware. She thought about what she knew of Ethan Callaway now. After the rejection, he had taken a contract position with a local engineering firm. When that ended, he had done freelance work. When the freelance work slowed, he had driven deliveries on weekends. He had never filed a complaint against Voss Capital Group. He had never spoken to the press. He had never, as far as her research showed, spoken badly about the company to anyone. He had simply kept going. He had kept raising Maya. He had kept showing up for his neighbors, for his community, for a town that knew his truck and trusted his word. And the man who had quietly changed the course of his life, the director who had buried his proposal to benefit a competitor, was now sitting comfortably in a new role, unaware that anyone had ever looked twice at the file. Serena picked up her phone. Then she put it down. This was not a problem she could solve with a phone call. She drove to Cedar Falls the next morning. She told herself it was due diligence, professional accountability, the appropriate response of a CEO who had discovered a serious compliance failure within her organization. She did not tell herself the truth, which was that she needed to see him. She thought about the cake the entire drive. $3. She managed funds with 7-figure minimums. She had signed checks that could buy city blocks, and she could not stop thinking about a man who had spent his last $3 on a stranger's birthday because his daughter had told him everyone deserved birthday cake. She found his workshop on the eastern edge of town, a low concrete building behind an equipment yard, the kind of place that looked like nothing from the outside and smelled like everything important: machine oil, metal shavings, the particular dusty warmth of a space where someone works with their hands because they cannot stop thinking with them. She heard him before she saw him, the rhythmic sound of something being assembled or reassembled in the back. She walked in. Ethan looked up from a workbench covered in circuit diagrams and copper wiring and what appeared to be a prototype about the size of a briefcase. He wore a gray t-shirt and work gloves. He looked at her with the polite attention of a man who rarely received unexpected visitors and had learned to receive everyone with the same expression. Then recognition moved across his face. Calm, controlled. "The birthday cake," he said. Serena almost laughed. "I suppose that's me. Happy belated birthday." "Thank you." She paused. "I know who you are, Mr. Callaway." A beat. "I know who you are too, Ms. Voss." He removed his gloves. "I recognized you at the bakery." The sentence landed in the middle of the quiet workshop, and neither of them moved. "You recognized me," she repeated slowly. "And you needed help," he said, simply, as though this required no further explanation. Serena stared at him. In her world, the world of acquisition targets and board votes and competitor intelligence, no. Action arrived without a motive. Favors were currencies. Kindness was strategy. She had operated inside that system for so long she had stopped noticing how transactional everything had become. And this man had recognized the person who had rejected his $10 million proposal and bought her birthday cake because she needed one. She placed a leather folder on the workbench. I reviewed your proposal, the complete original file. I believe the evaluation your project received was compromised. The numbers were altered. I'm investigating how and by whom. She paused. I want to reopen discussions. Full funding, full development support, whatever you need. Ethan looked at the folder. He did not pick it up. That's generous, he said. It's overdue. It is, he agreed. And then, slowly, deliberately, he pushed the folder back across the workbench toward her. No. Serena blinked. No. His voice remained level, unhurried. The voice of a man who had decided exactly what he wanted to say before she walked through the door. 6 months ago, I needed someone to actually look at the work, not a bigger check later. He looked out through the open garage door toward the street, where children on bicycles passed in the afternoon light. What hurt the most wasn't the rejection. It was spending 3 years building something real and realizing nobody had bothered to understand it. The words fell into the silence of the workshop and stayed there. Serena could not speak. She had handled difficult boardrooms. She had navigated hostile acquisitions and public failures and the particular cruelty of financial press. She had never, in 15 years of running a company, felt the full weight of a professional failure settle on her the way Ethan Callaway's quiet honesty settled on her now. No anger, no accusation, just truth, which was, somehow, so much worse than anger would have been. 3 days passed, then a week. Serena did not push. She returned to Denver and did what she had promised. She followed the revision timestamps, traced the internal communications, identified the director who had buried the AirVault proposal, and began the process of a formal internal investigation. The director's new employer received a very specific legal communication. The story, when it eventually leaked, moved quietly through industry circles with the particular momentum of something people had suspected and were relieved to finally name. She also, on a Tuesday morning, called Ethan Callaway, not to offer a deal, to ask if he was willing to talk. He said yes. They met at a diner in Cedar Falls, not a boardroom, not a conference call, not a formal negotiation. A diner with vinyl booth seats and coffee that tasted like it had been brewed since the previous administration. Ethan brought Maya, who promptly decided that Serena's name was difficult and called her the birthday lady, which Serena found, to her own surprise, entirely acceptable. They talked for 3 hours, not about funding rounds or equity structures or market projections, about the work, about what AirVault was actually designed to do, and why Ethan had spent 3 years building it, and what he believed it could become with the right support behind it. Serena listened, really listened, the way she had not done 6 months ago, the way she had been too busy and too certain and too surrounded by systems she trusted too completely to do the first time. By the time the coffee was finished, and Maya had successfully eaten an entire slice of banana, cream pie, something had shifted. Not a deal, not yet, but a beginning. Over the following months, Serena rebuilt the proposal review process at Voss Capital Group from the inside out. New oversight requirements, independent technical reviewers with no financial relationship to the firm, existing portfolio, whistleblower protections for evaluation staff. And 1 year after a $3 birthday cake in a Colorado bakery, AirVault Energy Optimization launched its first commercial pilot, a partnership between Ethan Callaway's independent firm and Voss Capital Group, with full development funding and Ethan retaining majority creative control. The industry response was significant, but that was not the moment Serena remembered most. The moment she remembered was a Sunday afternoon in Cedar Falls, 6 months after the launch. She arrived at Ethan's house for Maya's 9th birthday party, carrying a small white bakery box tied with a blue ribbon. Maya opened the door and shrieked with delight and grabbed her hand and pulled her inside where streamers hung from the ceiling and half the neighborhood was crowded into the small living room, and somebody had put music on too loud and nobody seemed to mind. Ethan stood in the kitchen doorway, watching his daughter with the specific expression of a man who knows exactly what he has and considers himself, quietly, the luckiest person in any room he enters. He looked at Serena, at the box, and smiled. Maya tore the ribbon off and lifted the lid and found inside a small white cake with blue frosting that read, "Happy Birthday, 6 inches, $3, if you happen to know the price." "It looks just like yours," Maya said, confused but delighted. Serena glanced at Ethan. "It's a long story," she said. Later, after cake and chaos and a gift-opening ceremony that somehow lasted 45 minutes, Serena found herself standing beside Ethan on the back porch while the party continued inside. The Colorado evening was warm and clear. Stars were beginning to appear above the roofline. "I owe you something," she said. "You don't," he said. "I do." She looked at the party through the window. Maya laughing, neighbors talking, the small, ordinary perfection of it. "I spent 15 years believing the most important thing I could do was see opportunity before everyone else." She paused. "Turns out I was looking in the wrong direction." Ethan was quiet for a moment. "I think you were looking for the right things," he said. "You just forgot that the most important ones don't usually show up in financial reports." Inside, someone called for another round of cake. Maya appeared at the window, pressing her nose against the glass the way that little boy had pressed his against the bakery case what felt like a lifetime ago. She waved dramatically at both of them. Ethan waved back, and as the evening light softened and the stars brightened and the sound of her daughter's as laughter drifted through the window, Serena Voss understood something she had been too successful for too long to see. The most important investment she had ever made had cost $3. It had bought back something she had not known she'd lost. The simple, irreplaceable understanding that some forms of value cannot be measured, cannot be projected, and cannot be found in any evaluation summary ever written. They can only be recognized, in a bakery, on a birthday, by a man counting crumpled dollar bills, because it was never about the money. It was about seeing someone, and choosing, without hesitation, to help.